Lewis, welcome to the Family Business Show.
Lovely to see you.
So, you and your family are like serial entrepreneurs, and you've got this fantastic new business, the Working from Home Zone. And I thought it would be really interesting for our audience of other families in business together to hear about your background, your family's history in business, and then this fantastic new business that you've come up with during the pandemic. So, why don't you take us all the way back to, your parents and where this entrepreneurial spirit has come from?
In terms of the work from home zone, the actual idea of it, because that's kind of a little timeline in itself, the idea of it was my dad's, as you kind of touched on then. We've all run our own businesses. Parents have been doing this for God knows how long, and heavily been involved in kind of hospitality, wedding venues, running wedding venues. So then my brother's been involved in design exhibition agency, so he's running his own business there. And my background is heavily involved in commercial energy, so a full range of different things. But like I said, the idea of the work from home zone was my dad's back in 2001. And the idea back then was, even if you could get people working from home 1 day a week, the environmental benefits, wellbeing benefits, cost savings, so on. And with him obviously running his own businesses, put down the book, thought I'll revisit that one day. Fast forward on 19 years to January last year, weird timing, before the pandemic. Obviously remote working was starting to get a little bit more traction anyway. Revisited the idea, the pandemic hit, and kind of turned around to myself and my brother and said, this is the idea I've had for 20 years. And what do you think about it? Obviously there was no better time. It was working from home was escalated God knows how many fold in the space of about 3 days. So we, as a family, from April to September, which kind of market researching and business developing to see if there was a need for anything to do with working from home, if there was a market there or not. And the biggest thing that stood out to us was that when we're speaking to businesses, individuals, employees working from home, that there was nowhere which brought everything together with the solutions. So whether that be tax or HR or furniture or garden offices, work from home goodies, you name it, anything to do with work from home, you could find lots of different articles on it, but there was no one which actually brought all of it together to actually help set that person up to work from home properly, basically. So through all of our research, we then, from October to January this year, will speak to businesses and suppliers to see if it would be something they want to be a part of, and it was. So we fully launched our website only on the 4th of January 2021, and yeah, it's just taken off like something which I couldn't even imagine since then, really. So yeah, that's kind of how that timeline kind of went, really. But yeah.
That's amazing. I mean, it's essentially work from home in a box. So for any employer, so from an employer's point of view, that's a dream, because you're absolutely right. There is so much information out there scattered all over the place. And, I'm just trying to run my business as it is, let alone try and pull all this stuff together and make sure I'm compliant, make sure my staff are okay at home. It's so much more than just give them a laptop and see how it goes.
Yeah, literally. And the word compliant was the one which, as I said to so many people, is that business has done so well over literally 24 hours to go from full-time office to full-time remote. So they've done amazingly, but it was only meant to be kind of a short-term kind of solution. It definitely, no one pictured it being here for 12 months. And therefore there were a lot of things that were missed. So meeting legal requirements is actually quite worrying when you want to go into detail with it. There are so many which have not been met, which people aren't aware of, and it's not their fault. It's just they haven't been made aware of it because there's been nowhere to go to find out the information and then to hold their hand to talk them through the process of it. So yeah, spot on. That's literally why we're here, to help businesses set employees up to work from home the right way, is what we say. So
Amazing. Okay, so let's talk about going to business with your parents and your brother, because for our audience watching this, they will all be familiar with working with family. For many people, just like you and I, are probably grown up in the summer holidays helping out in this business, helping out in that business. But actually to go full time working with your families is a big deal. So talk to me about how that works with you guys and the relationships and how it all works.
well, we all, like I said, kind of touched on earlier, we're all, I think, very similar way that we're all very chilled. which I think is really important for getting involved with the business together. Like I said, my parents run their own wedding venues. They've always worked together. I've then worked on my own, and brother has worked on his own. But even with that in mind, we've also been a part of their wedding venue businesses. It's been where I started my career, and also my brother. So we've all kind of, from an early age, I suppose, in the working world, worked together. But then obviously gone off into our own different things, and then this has weirdly brought us all back together again. But I don't know, we never really think about it, I suppose. It's your family at the end of the day, and like I said, we're very similar in the way that we all have a very similar kind of work ethic, that we appreciate the finer things in life, I suppose, and to never get too stressed out with the different elements of it, because family always comes first.
So we're going to talk about the sort of future of the business in a second, but looking back, I mean, how old are you?
23.
23. So you're a bambino, my mum would say. But so you know, you've run your own business, so you're bringing your own skills and those amazing talents of you and your brother. But are there certain things that you particularly learned from your parents and all of their experience working in business?
Probably the biggest thing, which I'll probably take from my dad the most, is just the applying logic to situations, and taking a step back, because you can get caught up, as you probably know as well, you can get caught up with all the different ideas that can bubble around in your head, but which ones you actually pick out to actually spend time on. If you did that for every single one, you would get absolutely nowhere, because there's just so many things you can think of. So I'll probably say logic is probably the biggest thing, to actually take a step back, assess the situation, look at the pros and cons to it, and then establish whether it is worthwhile putting the time into to actually explore. And I think by taking on that trait from my dad, who's always, like I said, given me the advice whenever I've needed it throughout all of my working career, yeah, it's been the biggest one, to ensure that I've not kind of deviated away from a path. I've always kind of been able to stay on a pretty steady path, which has kind of got me to where I am now, I'd say. In terms of my mum, probably the sales side of it. More people's person. I was coming out of school, I was definitely not the way I am now, I'd probably say. I was, would I say, shy, maybe? But nowhere near as confident as I am when actually dealing with people and speaking to people. So that was kind of from my mum. I'd give her credit for that side of it. She made me a lot more kind of adaptable in that way. But yeah, they're probably the two biggest traits I could probably say I've taken from them.
Fantastic. Right, let's talk about modern business, because essentially the business you are now running is quite a radical business. I mean, you're dealing with a radical time that we live in right now. I mean, living through a pandemic is one thing, but as you say, it's working from home is here to stay. Yeah. But also your sort of type of business model, your ethos and your approach is not how a lot of businesses have operated historically. So let's talk about that sort of new generation's way of thinking.
It starts with educating. You're so right in it, is that it is all so new, and setting up a new business in the middle of a pandemic was also one thing which we looked at and thought, is that just stupid? But you never know unless you try, and that's why we've done all our market research and business developing. And as you say, with the new world that we're kind of going into, it seems, through the research that we've done, it was a no-brainer that it needed a hub, a go-to place for businesses who are evolving and moving into this new working world to go to for that advice. Everyone needs it. For example, if you needed anything furniture-wise, as it's become more and more apparent, you go to Amazon. That's the go-to place. If you need anything, that's where you go. However, for anything work from home related, or whether that's a service or a product or a solution mainly, to have a go-to place to find the answer to it, to speak to an expert, and also then engage with a supplier to take it off your hands, seemed like a no-brainer for the market, like I said, that we're going into, because it is so new. And I touched on educating. That is the biggest thing, because when you're actually talking to businesses, they don't necessarily know that they need you at the moment, because they've gone through the pandemic, and everyone's at different stages. Some are still trying to get through furlough and assess where they are in 6 months' time, and whether they'll be employing again or reducing office size. Some aren't even at the stage to look at it. So it's speaking to the ones which are at the stage already, educating them of the legal requirements, how they can improve productivity and well-being, and how they can reduce costs, because they don't necessarily know how to do that in, like I said, a new working world. So yeah, educating is the biggest thing, but it makes the process a hell of a lot longer at the same time, because it's not like you've got a product which everyone's aware of. Oh, I know how that works. There we go. It's a case of you need to educate them on the whole thing, and yeah, from there.
I'm going to compare it to walking into one of those massive cookery shops and seeing something on the wall thinking, I didn't know I needed that, but I do need that, you know? And I think that there's a huge job to do there, because everyone, like you said, overnight went to working from home, and with the very basic, right, I'll make sure they've got a laptop and a desk and a semi-comfy chair that isn't a dining room table chair. But
if you're lucky.
having a resource like your website is just, it's just a dream for any business owner, really. And so to talk about your business model, because it's not just your bog standard, here's a list of people. You've got a totally different ethos. You've got a subscription model, and I think it's a really good reflection of the way business is moving forward at the moment. So, you know, you've got things like Netflix. You don't even check your Netflix account. You just let it subscribe. It keeps on going, and it brings value to your life. You've got people like Amazon who are on demand, deliver exactly what you need and what you want. So modern business is changing. I mean, it's changing week to week, month to month. And you guys have really embraced that, you know, with your online presence, with your social and your digital strategy, your subscription model. And I hesitate to say, but it's because you're that younger generation, and this is just your go-to, isn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting you say that, because it would be the biggest advantage, like I said, probably having the younger generation maybe moving into it. But some of the best kind of tools to the business so far have been a lot from my parents' side of it. So the older things, for example, I touch on a newsletter. So we have our weekly newsletter every Tuesday. And if I'm completely honest, I thought that would be something which may be good, but our time could be spent elsewhere in other kind of LinkedIn campaigns, which you could say is more modern day, which have been effective. But probably one of our most effective tools has been the newsletter, which again, I'd love to take credit for, but it's absolutely nothing to do with me. The newsletter has been one area which has been fantastic to us. That's been going since the start of the year, and I think we've got about 1,000 subscribers already. Then we have our marketing campaigns, which you touched on earlier as well, like social promotions, any suppliers which come on board. We promote them via our actual social media campaigns, which are on Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. So then also not kind of promoting just the products and the services and the suppliers, it's actually educating also our kind of subscribers and followers of what I touched on, the things that they need, because it's all good and well promoting all these products and services, which people say, oh, that's really good, but unless people know why they need it, there's next to no reason for doing it. So you have to be creative with what you kind of promote and where you promote it, really, I suppose.
Okay, so there are a lot of family businesses out there at the moment who have, you know, they've got through the pandemic so far, they've managed to stay afloat, they're surviving. But something unique that family businesses have is that younger generation sort of waiting in the wings, who've maybe been in the business for 5-10 years, thinking one day I want to take over. But they have so much to bring and to add. And isn't that such a privilege of being a family business, that you've got that next generation skill set there and waiting?
Yeah, literally. And again, that kind of ties in with the different backgrounds that we have as well. And so you have obviously the younger generation mixed in with the older generation. My parents would hate me for saying that, but it is true. But then, like I said, the actual industries that we've all come from all require so many different skill sets. So if you touch on Brother, which is a lot more creative and designery, which has been fantastic for a lot of the branding and social media promotions. A lot of credit goes down to him for that. Then down to kind of the customer service and managing kind of process, you could probably say is more down to me. So actually speaking with suppliers, managing the process of them onboarding with us as the platform, and businesses, you could put it down to myself. But then you have the guidance and support from my father's side of it, which gives you the whole kind of structure to the business. And those three kind of elements have been so key to how we've got to where we are. So I think a blend is just perfect, and yet families massively help with bringing both generations together.
I'm going to put you on the spot now. So put yourself in the position of, I'm a family business, maybe a couple of generations old, 2 or 3 generations old. And now that we're coming out the other side of this pandemic and there's a light at the end of the tunnel, I see you guys as a really modern, exciting, vibrant business. What can I do as a business owner to just breathe some new life into my business and my brand and the way I deal with my audience?
Take a step back. Probably the biggest thing I'd say. Take a step back, look at where you are, because the last year it's been such a roller coaster that you will again just get caught up in the motions. And for me, if you wanted to kind of a refresh to take on board, I like to say, some of our positive energy that we have, take a step back, look at your business, and either reach out to younger generations or other people potentially through yourselves who are of that kind of era, you could say, and look at the way that the modern world is kind of going. That's the way which I'd probably say. So I said, if you're lucky to have a family business, you tend to get that blend anyway. So I probably would say, take a step back, look at your business, look at where it's heading, but look at what the market needs as well, because it's changing so much. As you say, literally changes on a weekly basis, that we're looking at different elements and having to adapt either a website or adapt a marketing campaign or anything to do with it, just because ours is in particular a brand new market, and keeping on the front foot is so difficult. But that's not to say that that's not the same for so many other industries out there, especially at the moment, because so much is changing. So take a step back, look at where you are, look at where the market's heading, and see if your business is still that perfect fit for that market, or if it needs to be streamlined, or if it needs to be brought into the modern world. Social media in particular is a case that was a business which I looked into. It was one of my first businesses. It was like social media management, where so many businesses didn't understand the gain that you can have from having a presence. And it's even more the case now. So if you're not doing your socials as well, I highly recommend kind of, if you're speaking to somebody about it, or just having a little look into it further.
Brilliant, thank you. And from a working from home perspective, what do people need to be thinking about? Because they're thinking, oh, it's all right, we've been doing this for 12 months now. Yeah, it's totally fine. So what should they be thinking about?
There's a question for you. everyone asks that. And it literally depends on industry, to business, to size of business, to number of employees, to where you're heading, which is again a case of you need to really speak to an expert about your business, where you see it heading, to fully establish kind of what you do need. However, if you're kind of talking about 4 principles that we represent, is meeting the legal requirements. You need to do that anyway. That's a given. Even if it's a case of ticking the box, then you have to do it. But again, not many people will actually understand all the different elements needed to it. So there's your number 1, meet legal requirements. But then if hybrid working is going to be here for you, whether it's full-time at home, or a mix between office and home working, to understand how to do it to actually improve your productivity, improve your well-being, and reduce your costs while doing it, it is actually really simple. It's so simple to do. But again, it's locating the suppliers to engage with, or services or products to actually find and engage with them to make it happen, which you can do so obviously by ourselves. So meet the legal requirements. If it's a part of your future, which it is in a lot of cases, then speak to ourselves to establish the ways which you can and which are specific to your business. Because I'll take one example. With employees, for example, if you have 5 or more employees, it's a legal requirement to do workstation assessments. If you don't, then you don't need to. But again, it's a case of, the stats show that 60% of workers last year didn't do workstation assessments, work from home, which needed to. I can guarantee that was easily 80 to 90%, but the stats say 60. Therefore, there's a very, very sizable chunk of the market which is not meeting a very simple legal requirement. And the knock-on effect from that is, I can give you a timeline now. You go to September time starting from the pandemic, April, people work from home, not doing work-related workstation assessments. We then fast forward to kind of September, October time, even though we're in a lockdown, physiotherapists, chiropractors inundated with work-related injuries. They'll kind of get into discussions about it. How it happened? Have you been filling out workstation assessments? No, I haven't. Well, your employer should be doing that as a legal requirement. Personal injury claims come in. If the employer hasn't got the correct insurance in place, they can get fined up to £2,500 a day. Then the dots start to unravel, and it's again the case of it's not the employer's fault, they weren't aware of it. But now, if it's going to be a part of your future, you need to ensure you're meeting those legal requirements, otherwise you're going to get burned quite badly, to put it quite straight. So it's, again, about educating and understanding how and what you need to do, basically.
I think £2,500 a day is something every business owner can understand.
And it's having those conversations that people start to go,
oh. Absolutely.
So.
And rightly so, rightly so. Okay. We are a community of people running family businesses, just like you, just like me. We are here to make sure each other survive and thrive and flourish. So time for you to give a shameless plug. How can we help you and your brand new business and your family to be successful? What can we do as an audience to help you? Get
the word out there. That would be the biggest thing. If it was possible to, and like I said, if we can work with other family businesses, that is exactly what we want. For every supplier, I know this is kind of deviating again, but for every supplier that we have on board, we're not a case of you come on board, you have a profile on our website, and our clients and businesses can find you on a website. That is not how we run. As similar to yourselves, we partner with our suppliers. It's not just a case of going on and we actually build a partnership with you. We understand your services. In a lot of cases, we'll actually get engaged with your services because we want to understand you and your business and your product to the fullest so that we can promote it as well as we possibly can to us businesses and clients and through our socials and so on. So similar to yourselves is that we want to build partnerships with as many businesses as we can because, as you know, things then just start to happen. So to your community, I would say just getting the word out there because it could be them, which have 5 or more employees, or it could be them as a self-employed person that aren't meeting legal requirements or aren't aware that they are, to also help them reduce costs in times that you need it most. So then also ensure that their staff are being looked after to improve their well-being. There's so many different elements, but it's just getting the word out there. Like I said, we're at that stage where it's about educating what people need and letting people know that there is actually somewhere for you to go to find all of the information and suppliers to actually use it. So getting the word out there would be the best thing for us.
Brilliant. Okay, so if you're a family business and you supply things that people could use working from home, so furniture or wellbeing services or legal, anything like that, insurance, anything like that, then get in touch with you. And also if you are an employer and you have people working from home and you think this is going to be the new way we do things and maybe it's a hybrid model, whatever it might be, then get in touch with you because you can help make sure that it's something sustainable, I think is probably the word here. Exactly. Something that you can sustain for the foreseeable future and it benefits everyone. And
take advantage of, because like I kind of touched on, well-being can be hugely improved. I don't know about you, but my way of living over the last 12 months has been incredibly better than how it has been because I've been able to do so many other things. I know pandemic-wise, everything's been shut anyway, so you can't do that much anyway. But just in terms of my work-life balance has been so much better. And I speak to so many people about it and they all agree that well-being has been affected because it hasn't been done correctly in a lot of cases, but they can see that if it was done properly, what a better life they would have. From being able to have a blend between two, you get to spend more time with your family, you get to go out more, you get to use your time a lot more appropriately for how you'd want to, not just as a robot going in, as you touched on earlier, a robot going on a train, getting in, going home, waking up again, going in again. You actually get control of your life.
So basically working from home is here to stay, however we use it, but it's to think about it not as a challenge for your business, but as an opportunity, because you're absolutely right. The well-being of staff, the more engaged they are, the more willing they are, because actually they're having so much more fun and quality family time in their downtime. And they know that they're being looked after properly by their employers who totally get it. So, well, Lewis, firstly, congratulations on launching this new business with your parents
Thank
and
you
your
very much.
brother, and we wish you all of the luck in the world. If our audience is going to be of help to you, then I know they'll absolutely get in touch. And likewise, if you think that you could work with some of our members and our audience, then we can put you in touch. So thank you for being on the Family Business Show.
Thank you for having
Wonderful
me.
to meet you.
And
And look
yourself.
forward to seeing how you guys are doing in 12 months' time.
Beautiful. And yourselves. All the best to you as well.